Welcome back to part 2 of Illinois' Capitol and Archives Adventure has come. Have fun watching.
Can you tell me about these tunnels?
Yes, we are standing in the basement of the Capitol building. Behind us is a connecting tunnel to the Stratton. It was recently renovated, that's why it looks very nice and clean. Previous to this, we had utilities that ran in this tunnel. We have multiple public access tunnels and utility tunnels that run on the entire complex. They feed chilled water, steam that heats or cools our buildings, also all electrical components, but fortunately for you today, you get a walk-in one. So.
The basement is the best place to see the arches that support the floors in the state capitol. There's many arches over your head, and then there's also upside down arches. So you may have heard that the ancient Romans used arches also in their buildings, and so the technique is exactly the same here. An arch works by diverting the force of a load, a heavy weight, in this case the floors, to two different sides. So the arch is diverting the weight left and right into these supporting piers. Now, you may be wondering, what about this upside down arch? What is it doing? Well, it's doing exactly the opposite thing. Instead of taking a heavy weight from above and sending that weight to the left and the right, it's taking heavy weights from the left and the right from the dome, because this is part of the foundation of the dome, and it's distributing those weights evenly on a concrete footing down below. And that keeps the dome stable, and it allows you to walk through here to the four corridors, the four arms of the state capitol building. And so that's just a little bit about what an arch does. It takes a heavy load from above, and it sends it left and right.
Tell us about this location spot.
We are standing in front of a statue which is called Lincoln of the Farewell Address. The sculptor is Andrew O'Connor, and this statue was put here in 1918 to celebrate the centennial of Illinois statehood, and it shows President Lincoln in February 1861, where he stood to give his farewell address to the citizens of Springfield. And the granite slab behind him represents the train car where he stood over at the train depot not too far from here to give his last speech to the people of Springfield before he went to Washington, D.C.
Thank you so much for this interview and tour today.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
You're very welcome.
Welcome back, CM Webbs. Today I am with Alex at the State Archives building. Alex, can you please tell us about yourself?
Yeah, my name's Alex Dixon. I am the conservator here at the Illinois State Archives, and that is a fancy title for I'm the one who works on all the documents here in the building. I make sure they're not dirty or covered in fingerprints and make sure they're not ripped into pieces.
Can the public come in to look at the documents, and what is the process?
Absolutely. So every document that's here in the building is owned by the public. Anyone who wants to come in is able to just walk into the building, let us know the documents they're looking to look at. If they would like to, they're always welcome to call in ahead and make an appointment. That way we can pull out the documents, make sure they're ready so we don't have to have you waiting as long. But yeah, absolutely. Everyone's welcome to come in.
What measures have been taken to ensure document safety in a disaster?
So this building, if you're ever in Springfield, Illinois, and there's a tornado going on, this is the building you want to come to. We are 12 stories. We're steel reinforced concrete. Inside the building, in the actual storage area, there's no wood. Everything is concrete. So no fires are going to damage the documents. If there's excessive rain or wind or any sort of damage outside, the building is protected from that. If something were to happen, we have a fully staffed conservation lab that's going to make sure that any sort of damage or water staining is taken care of as it happens. And hopefully, we will never have to test that. We're going to hope that our documents always stay safe.
What schooling does it take to work at the
Archives.
So, a couple of different options. It used to be all you had to do was be really into history and you would get a job at an archive. And that's sort of changing. Now it's becoming more of a, we want librarians. We want people who are trained to properly organize and store the records and make sure that once they're put back in the right place. And so we're going more towards that route. And then in our other divisions, like records management, we have an entire program dedicated to training people on the proper ways to dispose of records. In the conservation lab, there's a whole separate area of training for that. That's a lot of hands-on training, so just having the opportunity to work with documents gets you into that sort of job. But overall, a librarian, that's what we're looking for.
How long does it take to restore documents?
That is a tough question. We could say I could get a document done in a day or two, but that's going to be basic hydration and flattening and putting them into nice folders. Some records, if they are larger volumes or a big book, it'll take months. So you have to do every single individual page. You have to make sure that it's not ripped, clean any dirt off, make sure that there's no mold growing in there, and that all takes a lot of time. So we have some records that have taken us up to a couple of months.
Do you have super secret vaults here? What do you keep in them?
That's top secret, but we do have super secret vaults. And that's where we keep what we call the holiest of the holy documents. Every state law that Illinois has ever passed, every presidential signature that we have, all 4 state constitutions, we have attorney oaths from famous people from Illinois. We keep every receipt of land purchased by the state of Illinois, we keep in our special vault. So if it's of particular value, we will keep it in the vault.
What is the coolest document here?
That's a tough question. My personal favorite document is we have a World War I poster. It was a German propaganda poster. It was captured by the British, and it was translated into English and then put on display in England. And it talks about the German submarine warfare and how successful it had been. And when we got it, it had been ripped and it was folded and dirty, and so we had to do a lot of conservation work on it. And now we have it in a folder, it's repaired, it looks great. One of my coworkers' favorite documents, Jim, who's hiding over here, his favorite is a state proclamation signed by the governor allowing cats to be walked on a leash in the city of Bloomington. Right?
No, Governor Adlai Stevenson vetoed a bill that would require cats to be on leashes.
I was completely wrong on what his favorite document was. His favorite document was vetoing a bill that would have required cats to be on a leash. We have all sorts of other favorite documents here in this building.
Thank you for letting me interview you.
Thank you for coming. All right, now, as we went through the doorway, you might have noticed that it went from really comfortable, probably 73, 74 degrees, to back here, we're down to 60 degrees. And this is part of the way that we ensure our records are safe. So the worst thing for a record is temperature fluctuation, so going from really cold to really hot. We want to avoid that. Back here, we just stay really cold. And this way the documents don't have any sort of issues that would come along with those temperature changes. All right, I would argue that this is one of our most important collections in this entire building. This collection of records is why our archives exist today. So before we had the state archives, all of the important military records were kept at what was called the Illinois State Armory. The Armory building's right across the road from us. And back in the 1920s, a child with the name of Cecil came in. Cecil? I believe Cecil. Came in, and he was a little bit of a pyro, and he lit the building on fire, and we lost countless records. Part of the collection that survived, though, was the World War I bonus records. And with that knowledge, Margaret Cross Norton was able to take the loss of those records and turn that into a building for us. And so we have, I don't know, a couple hundred boxes this size, full of folders that look like so, that contain records that look like this today. So these are World War I bonus applications that have been burned. And this is the little bit of the records that would have survived. You can get a good view of the charring on the sides. But Margaret was able to take, again, what was a huge loss for the state records-wise, and turn that into a building for us. And so she went to the state, she went to the national government, and was able to secure the funding to build our building. And because of that, these records are arguably our most important collection of records. All right, so this is our conservation lab. This is where we take any sort of document that has any sort of damage and we fix it. That could be as minor as a piece of paper is folded in half and all we have to do is flatten it and put it in a new folder. That could mean we have a set of documents that was in a filing cabinet that had a little bit too much water and it's covered in mold. Whatever sort of documents that we can find either in our archive or brought to us by other agencies, we'll do whatever we have to clean, repair, stabilize, and get it ready to where it's safe for the public to handle. And so that's what we do in here. It's myself and Bill Lear, who's over there behind me. We're the full-time conservators who work for the Illinois State Archives. We have a third person who works with us, which is a great partnership we have because it is both the Illinois State Archives and the Illinois Supreme Court working together to save Supreme Court records. And so we have a third full-time employee who doesn't technically work for us, but works here in the lab to take care of these other records. All right, I've talked a couple times about how we're able to take mold off of documents, but every once in a while we get something that we can't do anything for. And this book is an example of that. This was a county record that was stored under a water pipe that had a slow leak, and it was undiscovered for years. And as you can tell, there is no cover on the back. The documents themselves are fused together. The book is debinding itself to where chunks come off on their own. There is nothing that we can do to save this. But it's a really good example of stuff that we can hang on to show people don't let a book set under a slow leaking pipe for decades. So we keep it. Now another example of that is this. These are attorney oaths. Similar situation. We're sitting under a slow leak for years. And the Illinois Supreme Court was able to get a massive building renovation to fix these issues. And so stuff like this was brought over here so we could do conservation work on it. And in the process of doing that, we found records that were like this. And again, the paper fibers have fused together. There's nothing we can do to save these, but we keep them as an example of what to help try and prevent in the future. This is our super secret vault. This is where we keep everything of particular importance from the state of Illinois. Every public act, all of our presidential documents, anything, our state constitutions, oversized documents of particular value, like the first map of the city of Chicago, we keep in here. And we have locking filing cabinets, and we also have special inner vaults that each have a padlock that we keep, other particular important items in. One of the things with the State Archives, though, is we have a rule that we take official state records, and then at the very end of our official rules it says, or anything we find cool. And so one of those items is these boxes here. These were found up in Cook County. They were in some underground tunnels that people had kind of forgotten about over the years, and they were just sitting there, nothing doing with them. And so the State Archives decided that they were of particular importance enough to bring down here to the State Archives. And so we have roughly 20 boxes of these, and inside of them are some burned records that survived a particular event of Illinois history. These survived the Chicago fire. And so most people believe every record at the time would have been burned, and most of them were, but we did get lucky in that a gentleman working at the courthouse had just ordered a fireproof safe. It had just been delivered to the basement of the courthouse, and it had been loaded with records that survived. The problem is that instead of being burned, they were baked. And so to touch these now, they'll fall apart. They will shatter into a whole bunch of different pieces, and we won't be able to do anything with them. So the hope is that at some point in the future, there will be some sort of technology that will be able to scan these records and get that information out of these books without damaging them, and then we can seal them up, safely store them, so the people in the future will be able to have a chance to look at these. All right, so in these vaults, we keep records that we are housing for other agencies. And one of those is actually from Hancock County. This is a project that we just completed, that we conserved this case for Hancock County, and we are going to house this in order to make sure it's in a safe environment. And part of that process is we keep it in our vault. So we did the conservation work, we digitized it, and we're going to provide copies of this for Hancock County to keep in the courthouse, while the original is kept safely here for whenever they need it back at their courthouse.
It's time for the bloopers. Get ready to laugh.
Tell us about this room. Tell me a little bit about this room.
Wait, are we rolling? Is it live now? The basement is the best place to see all of the arches in this building. No, just go ahead.
Tell us about this location spot that we are at.
Wait, are we rolling already?
Yeah.
You gotta tell us.
All right, now this, I've talked a couple times about mold and the cleaning that we do. There are instances where we can't do anything.